what I want to highlight is a few things from the Unit 1 packet that I saw as I was going around watching some of you do these problems. I saw some of you make some small mistakes. And so this is what I want to highlight. If you're doing a problem like number 12, I'll zoom in on it. And you have to distribute this -3 to the x and to the 2y. You get -3x minus 6y, because that times that is that, and that times that is that. What some people were doing was that when they had the -3x and the positive 5x, some people were changing the signs of those two things. If these are on the same side of the equal sign, well, there is no equal sign over here. You just put these two things together. You put the 5x together with the -3x. When you combine like terms, 5x minus 3x is 2x. And then we subtract 6y, and I cannot put those together. What I do not want to see from you is I do not want you to see you. Some people were putting plus 3x and plus 3x, and that's a mistake. We don't want to change the sign unless we're doing something to the opposite side. The correct answer for this is D. When you're looking at number 13, you don't change the sign between the 5y squared z minus the 2y squared z. You just put them together. You take these like terms, they have the same variables, and then 5 take away 2 is 3y squared z. The correct answer for that is B. And I'm just curious, I want to see how many of you put B for your answer. Raise your hand if I can see how many actually got that correct on your own. Good. Oh, it's fine, Ray. I know you're taking the test. But all of you, remember, every single question you see here, there's going to be one similar to it on the test. That's why I want you to check and make sure you know what you're doing. When there's an equal sign, though, if I'm moving something from the left side to the right side, that's when we do the opposite. That's when I add 7. When there's something that's on the same side, you just put them together. The 6 plus the 15, you just put it together to get to 21. We do not change the sign. The only time we change the sign is when I want to move something from one side of the equal sign to the other. And that's a big idea. That's the common mistake that I'm seeing from previous tests and quizzes. The answer for 14A is x equals 5. For 14B is x equals -2. For 14C is x equals 9. Of these questions, 14A through 14I, which one's the hard one? Which one do you want to go and talk about? Who had questions on these? Tony?
I.
On I, letter I. Let's go to I. Highlight it. Oh, it's a proportion problem. What I do for these ones is I cross multiply. I take this 4 and I times it over here. 4 times the -7 was -28. And that's actually what I get right there. And then I take this x and I multiply it to the 3 and I get 3x. And I set those two cross products equal to each other. -28 equals 3x. And I want the x by itself. So what I try to do then is I divide by 3 and I divide by 3. And if it does not go in evenly, you see how it doesn't go in? 3 doesn't go into 28 evenly. I just leave that as my answer. It's a fraction. Just leave it that way. If it reduces, reduce. If it doesn't reduce, it doesn't reduce. Junior. D. This one's a little bit harder. 1/4 x plus 1/3 x equals 7/4. I'm a big proponent of using calculators for fractions. So I'm going to show you how I did this. Since this is an x and this is an x, and they're on the same side of the equal sign, I'm just going to put them together. I'm going to put 1/4 x together with 1/3 x. And I use my fraction button. Here's my fraction button. 1/4x plus 1/3. What this is going to do is this is going to find a common denominator, and it's going to add those two values together, 1/4 plus 1/3. And it's going to take and multiply this by 3 and that by 3 and this by 4 and that by 4, put them together, and then it's going to reduce. Let me see if you can see that. It says 7/12. And what is that? That's 7/12x. I can't put the x in here, but I can put the fractions in here. So here's what I get. 7/12x equals 7/4. Now, as soon as I get that, I have 7/12x equals 7/4. I need to get rid of the 7/12. The opposite of multiplying by 7/12 is dividing by 7/12. What I want you to remember, the opposite of 7/12 is 12/7. Think of that as the reciprocal. The reciprocal is the refliprical. You're going to flip it upside down and multiply both sides by 12/7. If you multiply by 12/7, the 12 divided by 12 makes 1. The 7 divided by 7 makes 1, and you're left with 1x, which is just x. But whatever you do to this side, you do to that side. And 7/4 times 12/7, I do it in my head. But maybe you want to do it on the calculator. I'm not sure. Let's just plunge it in and see what we get. Times 7/4. This is my fraction button right there with the two boxes. You press 12. Then you press the down arrow to get into that box and press 7. And the calculator will do it and reduce it for you too. It's really nice. Don't be afraid to use those things. X is equal to 3. Now, if you do it by hand, 4 goes into 12 3 times, and that's on top. 7 goes into 7 1 time. 1 times 3 is 3. Hoping that helps you on these things. Other questions that you have in the 14 category, things you want me to highlight? Okay, I'm going to zoom out. I thought that the very last question, number 15, on the bottom of this page, was somewhat difficult. Now, I have a feeling a lot of you may have gotten number 15 or wrong. The answer is A. How many of you put A as your answer? Raise your hand. Okay, that adds up. That's about 25% of you. Okay. Let's talk about how I got this, and so that you'll be able to do something similar on your final. Good job. Good job, Ray. Okay. 1/2 m times v squared, where k represents kinetic energy, m represents the mass and has units of kilograms. What does that mean? That means that we're measuring mass in kilograms. That's our unit right there. Kilograms times the velocity squared. Velocity has units of meters per second. So I actually have to plug in kilograms, and I plug in meters per second, and I have to square it. Well, what does that mean my units are going to be? That means that we're going to have a kilogram here and a meters per second squared there. So look at what I put. I put kilograms times meters per second squared. You're going to have to square the meters, and you're going to have to square the seconds. Meters per second times meters per second is meters squared over seconds squared with the kilograms. And the only one that matches is A, kilograms times meters squared per second squared. What this is checking to see is, do you know how that the units are going to match any formulas that you plug them into? It doesn't even matter if you know what this formula is or what it represents, because this is used in physics, in high-level physics, as a matter of fact. It doesn't matter that. What you need to know is that the units that you measure it in, you plug it in, it should mathematically come out correct when you plug in those units. Backside of unit 1. 16 through 20. Let me zoom out a little bit. I want to highlight number 16 because there's a couple of these on your test. And I always get asked questions about it when we get to the final. If there's a mistake, a lot of people do not know whether to pick the top one or the bottom one or which step it is. So here's what I always say. If I can go 5x minus, or you multiply the 5 times 2 is 10, minus 4 equals 2x plus 6. If you agree with this step, you are not going to pick B. And then if I put negative 10 together with negative 4, and if you think that's negative 6, well, that's not correct. Negative 10 plus negative 4 is negative 14. It should not be negative 6. And over here, 6 minus 11 does not make 17. There's a mistake right here, and there's a mistake right here. So students will always ask me, well, do I pick this one or do I pick this one? Where's the mistake at? Is the mistake up here? Have they messed up yet? No, well, it's in between. Well, this has the first incorrect piece to it, so that's why I'm picking letter C. I'm picking letter C because there's no mistake up in step 1. There is a mistake from step 1 to step 2. The error is in step 2. I hope that makes sense to you. And then we're supposed to solve what the correct answer is supposed to be. The correct answer is supposed to be 3. I don't know if we go that far on the final. What we do is we do a lot of these things on the final. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. Find the unit rate of miles per gallon. If you forgot what unit rate means, it's how many parts per 1. How many parts? If I go 220 miles per 5 gallons, how many miles per gallon are you getting? This is the best way, literally, when you get your own car someday. Someday, if you want to know how good of gas mileage your car or truck gets, this is how you do it. There's this thing called a trip meter on your car's vehicle's dash. I don't know if your parents do this, but every time I fill up my tank, I press the trip meter and I reset it to 0. And then I drive until my car gets close to empty, and I see how many miles I've traveled on that tank of gas. Then I go to the gas station and I fill it up, and I find out how many gallons did I put into my little tiny car out there. And if I go 300 miles and I put in 11 gallons of gas, I can find out how many miles per gallon my car is going and actually going. Not what the computer tells me, because the computer estimates things, and how much is it actually getting. How many miles did you travel on 5 gallons? Well, how many miles per gallon did you get? You just divide. 220 divided by 5 is 44 miles per gallon. Okay, what else do we have? One solution, infinite solutions, things like that. I feel like you guys might know how to do 18, but any questions on 18? Didn't think so? Number 19, I know I had questions on. People ask me this all the time. Ray, did you get it? Yeah. I thought so. How many, let me ask this. How many of you got 900 feet per minute? Raise your hand if that's what you got. I'm seeing 40 or less % of my class. So let's go through how to do this. If I'm in 5 yards per second, if that's what I'm in, I write it as a fraction. 5 yards on top, per means over, second. 5 yards every 1 second. And I just kind of, that's the very first thing I start with. 5 yards per second. And I need to convert that to feet per minute. It does not mean we multiply by any of this stuff yet. What we need to do is I need to turn yards into feet. So what I have to do is I have to multiply by a conversion factor. The conversion factor is, if I want to get rid of yards, I need to go how many yards are in a feet, and if yards are on top, I need to put yards on bottom of the fraction. Meaning, yards, and feet, I know that there is 1 yard, there's 3 feet in every yard. And I want yards on top and yards on bottom, so I deliberately put the yard on bottom. 1 yard is 3 feet. If I multiply, yards will cancel, and I'll be in feet per second. But I want feet per minute. So I need to get rid of the seconds. And I know how many seconds are in a minute. There are 60 seconds every minute. In order for them to cancel, seconds are on bottom down here. I need seconds on top to cancel out. So once I set this up, seconds go away, then I'll be in feet per minute. All I then have to do is multiply the tops divided by multiplying the bottoms. 5 times 60 times 3 is 900. 1 times 1 times 1 is over 1. 900 feet every minute. 900 feet every minute. Sometimes it'll be a big number, sometimes it'll be a small number. It just depends. Okie dokie. That's unit 1.